We're talking about life after life and consciousness and all things spiritual again today on the show with the wonderful Virginia Drake, who has had many near-death experiences and miraculous healings. It's going to be a great show. Ginny and I have already had our podcast show. We've been chatting for about half an hour, and I said, you just have to repeat everything we've just said because she's been telling me great stories. So it's going to be a great show. Stay tuned.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do.
G'day. Welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM, syndicated radio all over the place, hitting around 120 countries. And we are streaming on 8 platforms: YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch, and Facebook. And my guest today is Virginia Drake. Welcome to the show, Ginny. She likes to be called Ginny.
Thank you very much. I really am looking forward to this.
We've been, as I said, we've been chatting already. We've been chatting for about half an hour. I get people to come on half an hour before in case there's any tech problems. And often there's Heidi. Hello, ladies. There's a few ladies coming online from Boulder. And there's Puss. What's Pussy's name? Hello, Puss.
His name is Baby, and he talks.
Baby. Yeah. He talks. The talking cat called Baby. And Shirley from Southern Ontario, Canada. Ginny was saying to me, because we saw you online before there, Shirley, that she's got a lot of clients in Canada. We love Canada. I'll have to go one day. I've never been.
Me either.
But let me tell you a little bit about Ginny. So, Ginny, in 2098, Virginia Drake had a miraculous healing after a major heart attack and a near-death experience. It was then that she became interested in the mind-body-spirit connection and the impact these forces can have on one's health and relationships. She's devoted over 25 years, probably more now, to investigating studies of meditation, natural healing, quantum physics, and how the electromagnetic field of the human body works in connection with the healing process. Virginia has worked in the field of education, social work, counselling, consulting, motivational speaking for over 30 years. She holds a master's degree in education from Georgetown College and a teaching certificate from Eastern Kentucky University and a BS degree in social work from the Murray Kentucky University. You're well studied, Sally. You're well studied. Her main message is we are here to wake up to who you really are beyond the flesh, to the self as soul. And the truth will set you free. That's what you wrote when you filled out the request form. The truth will set you free. But I found Ginny through, different other people's podcast shows, and I was brushing up because, it's months before I put people on the show when I reach out to people. So I was brushing up last night on a few of her shows, and we were talking, you were on Jeff Reynolds' show, the Jeff Mara podcast. And in 2024, wasn't it? Was it 2023 or 2000? And it went viral. It had over 1 million views. Yeah.
And still moving fast. I'm still getting people talking to them.
Yeah. I didn't actually find you through that particular podcast, but I was just looking last night because I love Jeff and he's been on my show and I've been on his. It was great talking to Jeff. But yeah, I think that was his most viewed podcast. And we were sort of talking about like when things go viral, like how does that work? Just that time. And you were saying, do you want to say what you could feel the energy when you were talking that you knew something was going on?
Absolutely. That's what I knew. I knew that my heart had opened up. And I mean, when I'm talking, usually I'm a motivational speaker on stage normally, and I could feel that. But when I was on this video, I knew what I was saying was so true and so exact. And I could feel it. And I could feel the energy coming out of my heart going out to the universe. So, yeah.
Yeah, something was happening because it's funny. And then you're on somebody else's podcast show a few months later, and he got 45 views. So Jeff gets over 1 million, and then this guy, like, go figure. You know, I call it spiritual algorithm. I mean, there are algorithms, you know, on the podcast on YouTube, but spiritual algorithm. But you've had extensive experiences, even when you were a child. We were talking about before we came on the show what Ginny could perceive as a child. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start as a child, or do you want to start with the heart attack?
Start as a child because, you know, that's what people don't want us. You know, they want me to talk about this big one, but I wouldn't have been with that big one unless I had all of these others. But I was my mother's 7th miscarriage in 1951 and survived it. I was only at 7 ounces, and people thought, well, in fact, my mother's doctor told her, said, I don't know if she'll make it. And they were just astounded that I could. And my mother had to have clothes made for me because I was so small. And as I got older, I could see things. I could see ghosts. I saw the red eyes. And this is what a lot that came out on that one video is that I could see the red eyes. They would come through the closet, and I would see them at night, and it scared me to death. I was in fear of all of this for a long, long, long time, just terrified.
What are red eyes?
The red eyes. Well, obviously, I'm not the only one that could see it, because a lot of people on that one video that I did with Jeff, people came out of the woodwork, said, we've never had anybody say that they've seen it. And I had seen it. I mean, they came in with big black, red eyes, and they would be they looked very reptilian.
Uh-huh.
And how I knew that is because I got really sick when I was a little girl. And I remember looking down, and there was a reptilian hand on my hand, on my wrist, holding me. And I was really, really sick. I had a real high fever, and it kept just patting me on the wrist, saying, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Oh, and so the red eyes are ETs, like interdimensional.
I don't know, because when I finally confronted the fear of even having that, I remember saying, that what is that all about? And it said, that's about your fear. If you are in fear, we look like that, demonic. It looked more demonic. And it said, but when you go back into love, we look like angels. Okay. So it's all perspective.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And once I dropped the fear, I started seeing a whole different understanding of life in general, of the perspective of there is love there. I could do things differently. I saw things differently. It was amazing. It opened me up to really understand my fears more than anything.
Heidi says here that she had a little miracle baby born at 25 weeks gestation. Wow. Just 1.8 pounds.
Yes.
Wow.
We didn't want to come in, obviously. I mean, I was fighting. I think I didn't really want to come in. And
when you said your mother's 7th miscarriage, she was having a miscarriage. Like she had, so she was having a miscarriage, but you were born alive.
Yeah. Well,
at how many weeks?
I was 7 months.
Wow.
I was premature. And she walked out she just stepped over what her problem was. And this is, women have that today. They put a rubber band under a woman's womb now, because she could get pregnant, but the weight of the baby would not abstain into the womb. And she would, she'd slip, or it would cause a miscarriage. And I was the only one that lived past the 7 months.
Wow. That's amazing. So did she have children before you, or you her first?
I'm the only child.
Oh, okay.
And I am also the only Drake. I'm the last Drake of this line.
Oh, wow.
See, it's a big deal. That, when you realize lineages and bloodlines, they mean a lot more than what you think. Especially in America, we've never really looked at our lineage and why that's important, why we're here. I had to do a lot of research, because being Drake, and I went to London, England, and that's when I realized I'm not from here. I'm from England, because the minute I hit the land there, I felt like I belonged there. And
wow.
that's my ancestry is Sir Francis Drake.
Oh, wow. There you go. That's amazing.
Yes.
That's incredible. That's beautiful. Yeah, my lineage is English too.
Yeah.
I've had past lives in England. They weren't happy ones. So I didn't love being in England.
And when I went to England, I would go into certain places and I would fall down. Now, my husband at the time, they all thought I was pretty crazy, because I would just go in and touch something, or Egyptian. I went to an Egyptian place too, the British Museum, and I couldn't touch any of that stuff because it would just jar me to the very ends. And I wasn't that awake to understand it. It frightened me.
Yeah.
Okay. That when you don't really understand your abilities, you become frightened by those abilities sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's what I teach is I don't want people to be afraid of who they really are.
Yeah. So getting back to the red eyes. So as a kid, you could see ghosts and you could see the red eyes, and you had a hand on your hand. It looked reptilian. And you were sick, and it was saying, it was comforting you, like the red eyes, even though it looked scary, he was comforting you, saying, you'll be all right, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
And did you get better after that experience? Did you have a sort of healing from that? Or
I was fine. A couple of days later, I was fine. I mean, it was like the flu. It wasn't anything I was going to die, I don't think. But I was really, really sick. And I remember I had a really high, fever. But it came out of the closet, and I saw the door open up, and it walked right up to, and first it had like a hood, and I couldn't. And when it raised up, I saw just nothing but the red eyes, and it scared me to death. I thought, this is it. But I've always believed that there was somebody underneath my bed. Always. As children, there are always ghosts or something under there. And I never, now that one, I wouldn't tell my mother. I was afraid she thought I was crazy. So,
yeah.
But she was scared. That's the thing. My mother was terrified. She was very intuitive. She was very, very attuned to a lot of but her fear was that. It was fearful. She told me never to tell anyone I could see ghosts or that I saw dead people. Then what she did is right here in my third eye, I had cancer that ran from this point to this point right through the third eye, because that's an oscillation point. That is where energy comes. And what I did is I closed it up because she scared me so bad. And at 42, I had cancer, skin cancer that ran all the way down. That's when I realized that I could do this.
Sorry, but that's when you realized you were what, Doug?
I said, that's when I realized, when I had my near-death experience, that's when I realized there's a lot more going on here, because I could feel the chakras when they would be in my body. I could feel those. And I knew that this was really here. There was energy there. So I was being closed down. And then when it came open, it was like, well, the near-death experience in 1998 opened me up wide. I mean, everything.
Somebody made me aware of recently when babies are baptized in the church, they take the water and they put a cross on their third eye, and effectively they close down their third eye by crossing it. And I'm like, whoa, I'd never thought about that before. Yeah, I saw that somebody told me that.
When they cross across the person's
eye, when you cross your, close down your aura, close down your field. Yeah. But you were also telling me before we went live that you saw your father died when you were 16, and you saw his ghost. And I said, did you tell your mother? Do you want to share that story?
I told her that because she was at work, and then she worked at night. So I was sitting here and I saw him walk from his bedroom because he had just died 2 weeks, I think week before or 2 weeks. And I saw him walk right across to the bathroom. And it shocked me so bad, because the only reason why I even caught it is there's a squeak in this, because I have this house now, and it would walk through, and it was like a squeaky, piece of wood on the floor, and you would hear him. He was heavier than we were. That's what brought me in to look at it, because I thought, that's Dad. And then I turned and I saw him walk through the bathroom, and I didn't come back out, but.
Did he look at you? Did he look at you? When you saw him walk, he didn't.
It could have been very well, because I had to learn a lot. That could have been a residual.
Yes.
Ghosts or live in residuals, because I have cats that I have psychics that come in to work with me, and they'll see the two cats. I said, those are residuals. I know they're gone, but now I have another one that stays and will sit next to me.
Yeah.
And but that's a residual. It's not because but now a lot of psychics would see my dad in the kitchen, and they said, there's a man standing in your kitchen. I said, oh, that's my dad. Or my mother. I have a lot of people that will fly in to meet me or stay with me for a weekend, and I teach them. And they are staying in my mother's bedroom, and she died in that bedroom.
Okay.
And so I don't tell anybody that, because if I did, they'll get scared. But most of them will wake up and they said, that was a real odd thing. But this, I felt like somebody was tucking me in. I said, oh, that's my mother.
Mom will tuck you in. That's so cute.
She would touch. My mother did this with all of us. She tucked us in really tight and keep us from being afraid. And I started laughing because I had, and also she turns on the light in the bedroom and turns it back off. Yeah. So, and I mean, people started saying that my light went off last night. I said, oh, well, that's my mother.
Yeah. My daughter's grandmother died recently, and she was messing with my lights. She was haunting me, but she thought it was hilarious because she knew I could see. So she was pushing art of my daughter's off the wall in the middle of the night. Slam! A painting had fall off the wall. Actually, the night she died, that happened. And then she would mess with the lights. And I'm sitting in bed one night, and my lamp on the bed is like, it's almost like it was doing Morse code. It wasn't just flickering. It was like going, and I like, because we used to call her Bubby Ninny. She was 100. I said, is that you, Bubby, messing with my lights again? She's hilarious. She just had so much fun. She stopped after a while, but when she first died, she thought it was so great to haunt me, or at least haunt somebody that, wouldn't be scared, but it was so funny.
But my mother, what she did is we had a big house on a farm, and we had a smoke alarm that kept going off. And I kept telling my husband, I said, you need to get that fixed. So he went up there, and there was no batteries in it. So immediately I said to him, I said, let's go check the house, because my mother's trying to tell us. So we checked everything. I kept thinking, was there going to be a fire or anything? Right. Nothing happened. But when he came out of there, he pulled, was sitting in a ladder, and he said, there's no batteries in this. And we heard it for like a week and a half.
Wow.
He'd go, beep, 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 and then it would stop. And I said, you need to get those batteries. And when he saw that, he kind of got almost shaky about it. He said, Jenny, there is no batteries in there.
That happened to me too, Jenny. My dad's cousin lived in New Zealand. She was in her 90s, but a couple of years before she died, her husband died. And we were sitting in one room, and in the other room was an old television. We upgraded her television, and we had put the old television in this other room, and it came on. And I said, that'll be Bert, her husband. And I went over to the television, and I held up the plug. I said, it's not even plugged into the wall. It came on. The television came on. But anyway, we're going to get to your near-death experience in 1998 in a minute. But what was I going to say? The question I want to ask you. So your mum was scared of all this. You were psychic. You saw ghosts and red-eyed people. And she was scared of all this. After she crossed over, did you have a conversation with her about all this?
Yes. Oh, my gosh. My mother and I always, it was oil and vinegar. It never matched, because she was very much protective. And I understand it more now than I ever as being a mother. I wasn't a mother at that time. She was so afraid that something was going to happen to me. So she was very, very safe to make sure I did everything right. And I did not do this, or I did not. She just was terrified if anything was going to happen to me. And one night after she died, I was meditating is what I was doing. And I have her rocking chair that I loved, that rocking chair. And we would sit with her, and she would sit in that chair. And one day I was just doing a meditation. I said, you need to go get lemon oil, and you need to really oil that rocking chair. And I thought, oh, that's cool. That's what I should do. And so I went and got the stuff, and I was just, really cleaning it up and doing the things I needed to do with it. And I felt somebody come through the veil, or it's like a veil, like it's like the curtain opens and you
Yes.
feel like they walk in.
Yes.
She came up right behind my back, and I heard her whisper. She said, "Can you forgive me?"
Mm.
And I thought, Mom, Mother, you weren't ever needed to be, worried about that. But I felt her embrace me from my back and put her arms around me and held me real tight. And she said, "I love you, and never forget that I love you." And
Oh.
it was beautiful, because I always believed she was so uptight with me that she really couldn't enjoy me, because my mother didn't touch a lot. She didn't hug like women do normally. And I got like that in a way. I had to tell my children, I said, this was the way I was raised. I just didn't do a lot of hugging and embracing people. And that's after that I did. I realized how important that was. And she did. She said, "Please forgive me."
Oh, that's such a beautiful story. That makes me cry. So she was basically saying not forgive her because she was an awful person, but forgive her for not believing in who you are and for
Yeah.
being scared.
Yeah. Well, I think she was tough on me. I don't regret it now. I look at the way I am now at 74. I am the way I am because of my mother. Because my father died when I was 16. And it was tough. I'm going to tell you, she was a tough lady. But I do not regret it now. I really am blessed that I had my mother. And when she put her arms around me, and I mean, you know what I'm talking about, Karen. When you feel them, it's not like being flesh with them. It was a oneness thing, and you could feel her. And she's come back before. Like I said, she still lives. She died here in this house. And if I have guests in there and they're staying in the guest room, they'll get tucked in, or their lights will go off. And I never tell them, because if I tried that before, and when you tell them, they're already expecting it. So, I thought, because when they came in, they usually come in and preface. They said, "That was the weirdest feeling. The light just came out of nowhere." And then I finally have to tell them,
Yeah.
But no, I don't regret. And then I live on Angel Avenue.
Oh, really? That's funny.
I live on Angel Avenue. I've been on Angel Avenue since I've been 8 years old.
Wow, that's amazing.
That my father and mother had in the 50s. He was in World War II. And now my dad shows up, but he doesn't talk. But you can see he will meet you. I mean, like I said, psychics used to come over and visit me and talk to me, and we would work together, and they would see him in the kitchen.
They'd see him in the kitchen, and he doesn't talk. Have you ever sort of said, like, let's have a chat, Dad? Heidi says here, I've had that experience of being held, such a loving, supportive, unconditional love. It's a feeling I'll never forget. Yeah, it is.
It makes you change. Your perspective changes very radically for that.
Yeah.
You realize there's more to it.
Have you never tried to have like a two-way conversation where he's talking back to you with Dad on the other side?
Well, no. My grandmother came back, but my father was kind of real close to the vest. And I think that's one reason. He's probably having to take time to really, because you don't have time over there.
What do you mean close to the vest? What does that mean, close to the vest?
Close to the vest, that's an American slogan thing. It means that he's real close. He doesn't like to talk about a lot of things.
Oh, I see. I gotcha.
Real close to himself. So he was very private. And when you're private, even when you cross over, you still have that same characterization that you haven't let go when you cross over. And he's been gone for a long time, since 1968. But I see him in my mind's eye a lot.
Yeah. So, well, let's fast forward to 1998.
Okay.
And you had this heart attack. What happened?
Well, what happened was, it really was the week before my heart attack. I was at the farm, and it was June. School was getting ready to end, and I was going in, and we were doing harvesting. I was doing tomatoes. I was doing canning, and it was a really hot night, not afternoon. So I came back in, and this TV was on in the den, And I was the only one in there. And this guy had he had like oxygen. He looked horrible, and he kept saying, "Don't get a heart transplant." And he obviously had incurred a heart transplant, and he was explaining how bad it was. And he said, "Don't get one," but he kept saying it, "Don't get a heart transplant." And he would lean into the screen, and I kept thinking, God, yeah, is he talking to me?
So this is somebody on television.
This is somebody on the television. Yeah. And he was telling the story about whatever happened, and he looked horrible, but he kept, and then at one time, it's like everything kind of very slowed down in the room with me. And he leaned into the screen and said, "Don't get a heart transplant," like that. And I thought, oh, well, I'm only 46 years old. I walk 4 miles a day. I'm healthy. And I raised my hand literally and said, "I will not get a heart transplant. Don't you worry about that." And the next week I'm looking at one.
Yeah, amazing.
And that really, everybody says, "Did you do it?" Absolutely not. They were all upset with me when I went in there. Well, when I went in, I thought I had indigestion. I had the week before, the 2 weeks before that, there was acid reflux. I'd had an attack in my classroom, and the ambulance came, and I was so embarrassed. I thought, oh my God, I'll never go back there. And this nurse, this man that was talking, he said, "Oh, you'll probably come back a couple of times thinking you're having a heart attack. Everybody does." And I thought, well, I will not go back in there and embarrass myself again like that. Well, when I started getting it, the really bad, I even went and got in a hot tub. They can't imagine that I didn't die right then, because I had 100% clot in my aorta. It was already there. It's called the widow maker.
Wow.
And they were shocked that I did not make it through. I mean, they couldn't believe it. But when I went to the hospital, they got me all straightened up. That's when I had an out-of-body experience in the emergency room. And I kept thinking, why is myself over in this corner, but I feel like I'm in here too? So how can there be two of us? So I was really, really confused. And I kept thinking, well, they shoot you up with a lot of drugs at the beginning. And I thought, it's a bad drug day. It's just they're doing something here. And then the next thing I did, I came down into my body, and I was viewing everything in the ER through my solar plexus. And I kept saying in my mind, that doesn't work. I can't talk. I can't speak, or I can't see in my solar plexus. How can I see this? But I was seeing everything. It was just like as clear as a bell. And I thought and then I was just totally confused. I thought, I'm just confused. They've got too many drugs. And then the next thing I get in, and they were popping me into the ambulance. And I heard the ambulance driver, as they were pushing me in, he said, "She's not going to make it." And I thought, I am so mad at him. He should never talk to me like that. And I mean, I thought, because I'm thinking, but I was out of body. That's why I hear him. So as I get pushed in, I was really upset because there was no lights in there. Well, what happened is when I went in there, and I went out of body again through the ambulance, but I could be riding right next to the ambulance you can't do that. I cannot be riding next to the ambulance and still be in the ambulance. I was totally confused because I never thought I'd had an out of body experience before, but I had many that I just didn't know what they were.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking, now I'm really having a hard time with all of this. And I felt like I'm just driving right along by it. I could think that does not work. So the next thing, I feel like I've got this big pool, like I had a ponytail on the top of my head, and it jerked me, and I went up. Literally, I went up and sat in a chair. I knew I was in a chair, but I didn't see a chair. I didn't have a body, but I knew I had a body sitting in that chair. And then there was 12 people in white robes and a hood, and they had a rope around them. I knew it was gold. I don't know how to tell you. I knew it. I just knew it. And that was the 12, angels, whatever you want to call them.
Your council, your team.
The
Your
12.
spiritual counsel. Mm-hmm.
They were telling me, but they never said anything because I never saw their mouth. I never saw their face, but I knew they were talking. But they would talk, but they also be like a choir talking, or they'd be a one voice, but they're all talking at the same thing. And it would be like, how does that work? How can you be talking to them all at the same time, but you could hear them talking?
Yeah.
It and I felt like I was in some kind of spaceship first, because I could see the novels. You know, I was a scientist, so I knew all about the sky, the stars, and how that worked. And I kept saying, oh my gosh, and look at that over there. And they would just laugh. And I think, are they laughing at me? Are they laughing at me? You know, but you're not talking, you're telepathically communicating with them, and it's a different experience altogether, because you heard everything. I mean,
yeah.
You knew everything. You heard everything. That one was amazing to me, because then I came back in, and then I went on into the hospital, and I was still out of my body, because when they took me out of the ambulance and the wheels hit the tarmac, or the road, it brought me back in. And I thought, wow, where am I? Who is it? And so I'm driving through the hospital, and I remember laying down, and it was just like ER, the series ER, how they have a patient, and they're running them down through the hallways. And I thought, this is just like ER. This is just like ER. You know, and you're having a whole different understanding, but I couldn't talk. The pain was so horrible that I couldn't talk anymore. And my friends, my co-workers, my teachers that I worked with, they all met me up there. Now, my husband was going to get the children, my sons, and they came in, and they were trying to ask me what was going on, and I couldn't hardly talk. So we talked like yes or no. And I did it with my eyes, like one pulled together was yes, and two was no. And they'd ask me questions like that. And I was terrified. That time I was terrified. I thought, this is it. You know, this is the last people I'm going to ever. And I mean, I can still get really teary-eyed about it. I thought, and I won't even get to see my children. I knew something was really, really bad, but I didn't know what. They said I had a heart attack, but you don't register. That's what I tell ER nurses that call me and everything. I said, you're out of body. So I couldn't understand exactly what they were saying. So when I went into the into the operation, that's where I met my doctor. And he had his gloves, and the nurses were all talking to me, and they'd already doped me up pretty good by then. And I remember he bent down. He did not have his surgery outfit on or anything like that. So he just came in, and he was doing his gloves, and he was talking to me. And then I remember he leaned down, and he lost his pen out of his pocket. And I thought, that is really weird. I see that. And then when I got into it, because they don't put you out, because they had to go into it was a heart cath. So it had to go in, and they had to, that was somewhat awake. And I remember thinking, I left my body, obviously, and I went underneath the table, and I said, well, there's the pen. And then he had Kohan shoes, which is very expensive shoes that I used to wear. And I thought, oh my gosh, he doesn't have any booties on. Now, if he gets any blood on those shoes, I'm going to get really mad, because I'm not going to pay for those shoes. Now, the craziest things you think the craziest things.
Yeah.
I mean, here I'm dying, and I'm worried about his Kohan shoes.
Worried about him getting blood on the shoes.
Well, because he didn't have those little booties on. And I thought, I got a booty on. I mean, you think, and I kept thinking, why am I even caring about that? But it doesn't matter, because you think your mind is in a different state of mind than your soul. And that's what it is. It's a split. And you go in, and then you come out, then you go in, then you go. And I remember I was telling somebody on a podcast, they said, well, that's not, oh, yes, it is a near-death experience. You're out more than you're in. So,
well, it's interesting that you say that you're in and out simultaneously. I've had that experience too, of being in the body and out of the body. Like, I knew I was in my body, but I also knew I was viewing my room from the ceiling,
Yes.
And I could see through all the walls as an experience that I had. And I could see my daughter waking up to come in. But I knew I was in and out of my body simultaneously, like we are multidimensional.
Yes.
And I remember Nancy Rhines. I had Nancy Rhines on the show, one of the first near-death experience, maybe the first near-death experiencer I put on. She was hit by a small truck. She was on a bike, and so she was smashed to smithereens. But as she's being dragged under the car, she's viewing it from outside, like watching herself but she's also in a body. So she said she had that experience. She was an atheist too before that. And she saw the accident happening from outside the car, but she's also in her body being dragged under the car. So yeah, it's amazing that we can have that view of being in the body and out of the body simultaneously, right?
Yes. I mean, and when I started doing all these podcasts, there was a lot of people said, well, that's not near death. I said, honey, I don't know how I'm more out of death, death I could be. I'm not present here, but yet I'm here. That means you're half and half. And that's what happened when I had the strokes. I had 2 strokes, and I was with a client, and she saw me go out of my body and leave and come back in. She saw it. Yeah. And because I wasn't afraid anymore after that. The first stroke, I wasn't at all. I thought I'd been hit by lightning. And I mean,
before we get to the strokes, Carol Ann says that Ethereal podcast, she's had that happen to her too, very impactful. But before we get to the strokes, when you were out of the body, when you're in the ambulance and you went up and you met your council of 12, did you say it was 12 people with the gold? Did they relay any messages to you? Like you said, you were talking telepathically, or they were talking telepathically to you. What were they saying to you? Do you remember?
Well, basically what they weren't saying a whole lot. It was all done by, a different kind. It wasn't words, but they were reassuring me that what was going on, it was normal.
Okay.
That, you're not crazy. That is a chair that you're sitting with. That is your arms. But I kept thinking, how is that? I could put my hands on my body, but my body wasn't there, But again, what I had to do a lot of research with this too, because I still thought I had a body. That was the whole thing. You think you have a body, you really don't, because you have never really been left that body or even, associated that. So you just knew mentally that there was a body there. There was never a body there. That was my consciousness. But it made me, and the 12 council, that they were trying to reassure me that you're not crazy, that this is really happening to you. So don't be frightened. And they were kind of giving me, but they didn't say it like that. They weren't saying it like words. You just had an understanding what they were saying.
So they were relaying messages of love and support and reassurance.
Yeah, reassurance.
And so you felt that love and support and reassurance, but you would interpret it like you're now interpreting it into how that felt as an understanding. Is that what you're trying to say?
I had not gone to the higher consciousness of God, what I called God, which is, I remember when I went over to that, and it was God was all white light. When I walked out of that section of the 12 council, I walked out and went out even further out, and then there was a beautiful light. I mean, pure white. It was it's not a light you're going to see here on earth. It was a pure light, and it was the most loving kindness. There's no words. You can't even describe those words because they don't exist here, that you could explain what God really was. It was the most amazing thing. You walk out and you think, I'm so loved. Yeah. And when I came back into my body, I remember coming in, I come back in after my experience with it. And that's when it really happened. I was sitting in there, and there was a woman in the ER, not at the ER, we were in there together. She was older, and there was just a little, like a sheet between us. I mean, because we were with the major, all these nurses were in there with me, and because they thought I was going to die. That's what I assumed, that they didn't think I was going to make it. But also at 46 years old, most of those nurses were at my age or less. You could see their faces every time they would come in there that I had this heart attack, and you could see how they would feel about it. Now, the lady that was with me or in there with me, she was older. She was in the process of dying. But in that process, when I was in there with her, I remember I was just so confused. I was exhausted. I was very exhausted. And I remember looking in the corner of that hospital room, and it was like a little bitty pin light in the corner. And I thought, wow, I wonder what that is. And the next thing as I focused on it, it got bigger and it got bigger. And the next thing I know, it was bigger than the room, bigger than the hospital. And I looked up and I could see 6th floor. I knew I was on the 3rd floor. I did hear that. And I thought, my God, it's on the 6th floor. And it's bigger. It was a giant. It was Archangel Michael. And he came down onto me and he said, it's time for you to wake up. And he was very firm and very strong. And I thought they're supposed to, and I remember laying down, oh my God, I thought they're supposed to be nice. I thought they're supposed to be nice. You know, you have all these misconceptions of what you think you're seeing. And then this group of angels that came in, and I couldn't hear a word they were saying, but I could see their mouth. And they just were going around my room, there's no way they could have done that, because there was a boundary between me and that lady, and there was no wall, but they were going right around. And they were talking to me, but I didn't understand a word they're saying because they were talking so fast, or the vibration wouldn't match. That's the only thing I could. And the next thing I know, then Archangel Michael is outside of the room, past the window, going, you can do this. You can do this. And I thought, what am I doing? And then the light, the whole room would flash out with real different light. And it went off and on all night. And then in the middle of all of this, I think it was about 3 or 4 in the morning, and there was a man that came in. I assumed it was her son. And when I was listening to him, because I was listening to him talking to her, but I was also listening to this that was going on. So, but he sounded like the National Geographic narrator. Now, you got to remember, I was a teacher. So the Learning Channel, all of these narrators are pretty much the same. And that's exactly who that man sounded like. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's a National Geographic narrator? Oh, surely not. You're really thinking this is crazy, bad drugs. I didn't know what to do, but I kept thinking, okay, just keep yourself together. You got one more, light will come forward and you'll figure it out. So the lady did die. I think they picked her up about 4:00 that night, or that morning.
Yeah.
And the nurse came in, and it was that, if you lived in a hospital ever bit, it was going to be 6:00. They're going to throw a cold wash rag on you, and I remember I looked at the nurse and I said, did the lady, pass? And she said, yes. I said, that was the weirdest thing. She said, what? And I said, that sounded just like the National Geographic narrator. She said, it was. That was her son. He just flew in from California.
Oh.
And
he worked for National Geographic, did he? He was
the real narrator.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's how they knew. This is what I'm saying. The universe knew that I would not believe any of that unless I had a true understanding that somebody was on the other side over there, because that was real. I knew that was real. I knew that when that nurse told me that that's who he was, it was like everything just opened up, because I knew I heard that and I had this happen. So it had to be real.
Oh, I see. So you heard what was like happening in physical reality, but you were also hearing and seeing what was happening in another realm or in spiritual reality. Let me ask you, when she crossed over, the lady that you were sharing the hospital room with, did you see her, perceive her at all? No, when she was crossing.
I was probably most likely not to see her. I was so overwhelmed by what was really going on that but the thing that I needed to know is it was real. Right. What really went on with Archangel Michael, even if he went outside to the window outside, or the lights that are going on, angels are coming in, that was really happening. So I was in the metaphysics of it all, or supernatural, and I was in the natural world of reality that I thought was a reality. Yeah. the higher consciousness of myself said she won't believe it because I was too much of a scientist.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I thought, because even though I had profound experiences and really amazing things, I still didn't believe it too much because I thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
Think of how many of us have these experiences, especially children when they're telling you something. Because I had one of my clients was only 7 years old because they were going to take her to a psychiatrist. And if it hadn't been for a dear client that I had, she said, do not do that. Take them to Jenny. And we sat down and I talked to that little girl. And she said, she was telling everybody she could see their auras. She could see everything. And I said, you can't tell them that because everybody was so upset with her. The teachers were afraid of her. Can you imagine? See, there's
how long ago was that?
Oh, she's probably now about 20.
Yeah, this was a while ago.
Yeah, because her parents were so scared because what happened to her is we had that tsunami that killed a whole lot of the people. They went straight through her room. They went through her room and she directed them to the light.
Hang on. I'm confused. When the tsunami came, whose they went through? The little girl?
But the little girl, she was they would hear her talking in her bedroom. You can go now. Go on. It's okay. And she's directing.
I see. So the people that died, she was directing them to the light. The people that died in the tsunami. Okay, I gotcha. And she was telling them where to go. Okay.
Because her mom and dad thought she's losing it. And I had to tell her, I said, you can do whatever you need to do, honey, but you can't go tell your girlfriends and your friends that their aura is off. Because she was so, oh my gosh, she was so wonderful. But they were going to put her on drugs. Our psychiatrist would have put her on drugs, and we would never see that little girl.
Yeah.
I worked with her to teach her, and I do a lot now still with students especially if they've had problems and they're disrupted. I find out most of the time they're very, very awake and they're very aware what's going on in schools. So when you ground them and teach them the environment of who they are, they change.
Yeah.
In schools. Yes. That's all I want to do is help them.
I had Kai Dickens on the show a couple of weeks ago, the producer of the telepathy tapes. Have you been watching that? All the nonverbal kids on the spectrum who are all telepathic and just like that little girl that you're talking about. Yeah. But getting back to your out of body near death experience, I think I heard you say that you could turn it. You saw yourself turning into particles, and you went everywhere in the universe and explored everywhere. Was that same one in 2000?
That was after. I had a lot of things that happened after that. But what it was is I went to the theater, and it was Lucy. If you've even watched that movie, it was called Lucy. Now, I did not know anything about particles or, I knew that I could do a lot of things, but I did. And there was a movie, and what she did is she broke into particles. And the next thing I know, I'm into particles in the theater, but I'm way up in the top of the theater trying to figure out how do I get back into my body. I could see my body, and I could see the back of my head. And I think, now how am I going to get up there or go back in there? How did I do that?
Yeah.
And I had this guy that was right above me in the theater. He had hot popcorn. I could smell it. I knew exactly who I was, where I was. So I pinched myself enough to where I could come into my body. And the person that was with me in the theater, I tapped her on with my little finger, and it brought me back. And I did that with my husband a lot of times because I would go out of my body in the middle of the night, and I would go into I'd be paralyzed. And I'd had to learn how to really squeeze my whole beingness in one little finger so I could tap him so I could come back in. But I didn't know that's what I was doing.
Okay, so when you were going out of your body, you couldn't move your body. Like when you felt yourself outside your body felt like paralyzed. But then you sent like some sort of thought stream, energy stream into your little finger to move it.
Somebody, if long as I could touch somebody or touch somebody that was alive. That's the way I thought it was, because that's how I would do it when I had my husband. And this happened in a theater. So I didn't know how to get back in. I didn't know how I got back in. And that's how I did it. I did the same thing with my ex-husband, or my husband at the time. I would push my little finger. I push all that force in that finger so I could just tap somebody and it would bring me back in.
That's so interesting. I've heard many people talk about when they have their out-of-body near-death experiences, that even Preston Dennett says this too, who's an expert astral traveler, that as soon as he would think about the body would literally pull him back in, and it was harder to stay out than it was to stay in. Or when he was deliberately learning to astral travel, and he said that when he'd get out of the body, as soon as he got excited, he's like, I'm doing it. Even the excitement will like pull him back into the body. It's like, oh, shucks, I'm back in. But like when he's out of body, that pull of the body, it just keeps sort of asking you to come back. But you weren't experiencing that. You were not experiencing the pull of the body asking you to come back.
Yeah. No, because I was stuck out there, and then I was really concerned. How am I gonna get back in? How do I do this?
Yeah.
But I had practiced, because I had I would be paralyzed in the middle of the night. It was horrible. You'd be stuck, and you knew something was in there around you, or you thought, I'd go into fear. See, a lot of this is about fear too. If you're in fear, your body will, shut down for you. And it was like, I had to learn. It took me 5 years to learn what happened to me and how to learn to practice, because then I could do it anytime I wanted to. I can set, that's what I was telling you with Jeff Maher. I was dancing out I went through a window, and I was dancing out in the universe with God, just discussing whether I should maybe I need to retire. And I came back in, and within 10 minutes, he had asked me to be there. I would like to interview you. And
Ginny and I were talking before we went live about her. How did she get on the Jeff Mara podcast? And his name is Jeff Reynolds. His wife's name is Mara, and he called the podcast Jeff Mara, but his name is Jeff Reynolds. And she was out of body dancing with God. I love this. And then she was thinking, maybe I'll retire. And she comes back in a body, and then he reaches out and says, come on my podcast.
What the worst thing was about that is I was bored. And I said to the universe of God, I said, I've been bored. Boy, did that hit. Oh my gosh, for a year and a half, I had people, I had 50 to 60 emails every day. I had to do everything. I thought,
I'm not bored anymore.
And my producer said, don't ever tell God you're bored ever again. And see, I didn't even know what viral meant. He called me up 2 or 3 days after the interview, and he said, what have you done? I said, what have I done? I don't know what I've done. What do you mean? He said, it's gone viral. I said, what does that mean? I had no idea. So it was, and I had to hire him. He's a student as well as a friend. He said, don't ever do that again. Don't ever tell God that you're bored.
That's so funny. So that was in 2024. I think things have calmed down since then.
Oh, absolutely.
Like over 1 million views on YouTube, just on YouTube. Yeah, because he's on several other platforms we don't even know.
Oh, I'm on about 25.
Yeah.
It ran through it so fast. I've never seen anything like that in my life. And I've been doing this, like I said, since 2001.
So Jeff thought that you had done something spooky to make that show go viral, because that's his most viewed podcast on YouTube. So he thought that you'd done something to make it go through. Like, what have you done, Ginny?
No, he's never. We talked after the second one. We did the second one. That was only 70,000 views. But he said, I've never seen anything like this. I said, well, I can't tell you what I felt, because I have never done this before. So I had no idea what that meant. I was just being like I am right now. I'm not, holding back on anything. I'm saying it. The only thing I can think of is when I did have a Jesus experience. He stayed with me for 18 months after my near-death experience. That's where I learned about the Bible. And I have a big Bible. I was a Catholic at that time, and I had a big Catholic Bible. And he he had it in his hands and it turned into water. And he looked at me. Now, I was a lifeguard and a manager of swimming, and I was a swimming coach. He had the Bible went into water, and he said, dive in. It's very simple in there, and you'll find out the truth. And that's what I did.
So how long after the near-death experience? So let me get this straight. So you've had the near-death experience when you're 47 in 98, and then you've had about 5 years of trying to adjust to the experience of being out of body a lot after that.
Yes.
And dancing with God and turning into particles. And
My mother-
how long after the near-death experience did you have the Jesus experience?
Oh, that came in about 6 months later.
So basically, what were you doing when you had that experience?
I was I was informed that I needed to meditate.
You were meditating.
Yeah, I was going to learn to meditate. But I'd also, during that meditation, I recognized that I could see flowers would talk to me, birds would talk to me, the grass told me, and I had a farm. The grass said, you don't have to mow me. All you do is ask me not to mow, to grow. And I remember telling my family, my ex-husband, my husband at the time said, you're crazy. And he would do this, like, oh my gosh, she's a crazy person. And birds, I could walk in. I was doing walking and everything. And they would go, hi, Jenny, how are you doing? It's so glad to see you. And I thought, oh my God, did that bird just talk to me? But the most impressive thing that I think I've ever really, there's two of them. I was standing in the field at the farm, and I just reached up and tapped the sky, and it went, va-vom, 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 va-vom. And I said, I did that. I know I did that. Then that's when everything came forward. I mean, and I laid down in a quilt. It was on a Sunday, and I wasn't going to go to church. I just told my family I'm not doing church anymore. I'm going to lay in the field because that's what God asked me to. And they would just, oh, here she's nuts. And I took a quilt out there by the field, and I laid down, and Mother Earth came in and said, let me teach you how to breathe. And I laid on top of the ground, and all of a sudden I was there with her, and she took a breath through my entire body and opened me up to what the universe really is. She was beautiful. She told me, you don't have to do anything. I can recycle myself. What I need from you and others is to love me, to honor me, to be respectful to me. That's all you need to do. And I'll take care of the rest. And I would tell everybody my experience, and they would just go, roll their eyes. And in my little small town, I was highly I was respected in here, and they all thought I'd lost, she had she had that heart attack, not enough oxygen in the brain, she's kind of crazy. It hurt me very deeply because I did not flinch when it came to that talking. I would not. And in fact, that's how I found out that near-death experience opened me up, because my ex-husband, my husband at the time, was molested by a priest, and the dead priest came to me and told me what he'd done to him. And I was a psychiatric social worker, and I worked with sexual abuse. So I knew exactly. That man literally walked in my bathroom. I was on the toilet. Everybody thinks this is so funny, but I was sitting on the toilet. He walked through my door by himself. There was no door. He walked through it, and he came in, and he was in a priest outfit, and he started telling me what he did to him. And I thought, I've been married at that time 27 years, and my husband never once told me.
Oh, wow.
So I was afraid to tell him, because they all thought I was pretty crazy already, talking about the grass, talking to the flowers. The flowers would sing for me, and I would go outside and they would sing for me. And they thought I was really whacked. And my sons today, one of them does. He thinks I'm really lying. But no, there's two worlds that are going on. And this is what I try to explain to people. There are two worlds, the supernatural world and the world that we think is reality. It's not. It's an illusion. And once you really understand that you walk that's why I called it the narrow road. I was trained by that 18 months with Jesus about the narrow road is through your heart. You've got to learn how to use that narrow road. The Bible spoke in a way that, I was raised first as a Baptist, so I knew the Bible. And then I went to being a Catholic because of my father's death that he went through. It opened me up to see that there is so much more in this world that I didn't want to miss it ever again.
Yeah. Getting back to you talking to Mother Earth, I had a beautiful woman on the show quite a few years ago. What year was it? I think it was just 2020. Yeah, so 5 years ago. Belinda Womack, who was a scientist, and then the angels came to her and said, "You work for us." And so she talks about the 12 archangels. There's many more, but she talks about the 12. And she said Mother Gaia, Mother Earth is one of them. She said that the consciousness of Earth is one of the archangels. And so when you were relaying that story of Mother Earth talking to you and breathing, she said the same to me recently, Ginny, that such synchronicity. I was doing a guided meditation and she said, breathe with me, get everybody to breathe with me, get everyone to tune into my breath. And let's breathe together, breathe with the earth. And so when you said that about her asking you to breathe with her, it's just like, wow, that's exactly what she said to me really recently, like in the last few months. Yeah, breathe with me.
See, that gives me chills. I know that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's go back to, because you're skipping along, here we go so fast. Let's go back to husband's priest molesting him. Coming to you and telling you and asking for forgiveness, and then you having not known about that, did you tell your husband that happened?
No, I was too afraid to. No, it all, let me tell you, it all worked out the way. I told the priest, I said, look, they already think I'm crazy, and I'm sitting here on the toilet, and you're in my bathroom, and you didn't walk through my door. I really am questioning my whole beingness of crazy, and I'm not going to do anything. If you want this to be given out or told to Ron, you need to make sure you do something well. You better think of something, because I'm not going to say it. Because my family thought I was nuts. They wanted to have me committed.
So is Ron still alive? Are you still with Ron?
He's no longer with us.
Okay, but when he was in his body, you never told him of that experience?
He wouldn't. Never. They wouldn't listen to me.
They wouldn't listen to you.
He got into I wrote a lot of my diary and it. They got on it. My sons laughed at me. They thought I was crazy. Well, when I ended up, I wasn't going to tell him. So what happened was, this is why I know it is so perfect. On Sunday morning, we always had coffee and we had that, newspaper. And I went into the bathroom and I opened up the newspaper and I opened it up like that. And my eyes really went down and started working. And this little bitty article, teeny weeny article, that these two priests had been, they have been found out that they were abusing children in the 60s. And one of the priests was called Father Wood. Well, I already heard about Father Wood. He was dead when I got into their family, and I thought, Father Wood. So that was Father Wood that was in my bathroom.
Oh, that was him that came to you in spirit, Father Wood.
And
but surely, Ginny, if you told Ron, your husband, that you had spoken to Father Wood and he had told you that, wouldn't that have been evidence that you were really talking to him?
No,
because he told you a secret that Ron had never told you.
Well, he told everybody that he'd already told me that, and he never told me that. I've been married to him 27 years. What he did is I caught him. He had an affair, and I caught him, and he said, well, the priest did this to me. And I thought, all right, you're going to blame the priest for you having, that's the way it was said. Now, this day, he told my sons, I told her that. Well, he told me exactly what he thought he told me. But I'm a psychiatric social worker. If I looked at him one day and I said, if you had told me what had happened, I said, go back, Ron. I was a psychiatric social worker. I worked with abuse. Do you think I wouldn't have tore that church to pieces?
Yeah, if you'd known. We have to do a station ID break, Ginny. Let's do a station ID break.
You're listening to ATP Media, Awakening and Expanding Consciousness with Karen Swain on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, on 107.7 FM and 105.3 FM, syndicated radio, hitting about 120 countries and streaming on 8 platforms.
Today is Virginia Drake, call her Ginny, who's had the most amazing near-death experience. I think the near-death experience is just, one point in the amazing life that you've led. But because you were already talking to ghosts and seeing beings with red eyes before that. And then after that, it cracked you open even wider, didn't it, Ginny? And you started talking to the plants and the animals and Mother Earth, and you're out of your body all the time seeing stuff. Wow. Have you put this in a book? Have you got a book, Ginny?
Everybody says that, but I want to tell you, I was told I was never to write a book.
Oh, why?
Because the way I get it is my clients, my friends, they'll write that book after I've gone.
They'll write that book after you're gone.
I have a lot of people. It was just very clear, you're not to write this book. I am the book. So they want me to talk to them and make them feel what that is. And I thought, okay, that's fine with me. And I was an English teacher so I was a debater. I taught children how to debate and how to get on stage and everything. I was doing all of that. So no, I have no qualms of ever saying that, because I'm going to follow what I've been told. And since I followed that voice, I haven't had any problems ever.
So in one of your out-of-body experiences after you had the NDE, you were exploring the universe. I think I heard you say this on another. I had a woman, she's one of the authors in my book. Her name was Yvonne Ballard. She changed her name to Naya, but she's since left the body. And so years ago, I put her on the show and she talked about this too. She said she was a nurse, and when she was out of body, when she died, she was it felt like years, but she said she was just exploring the universe. She could go into the nucleus of an atom, or she could pull back and see the multiverse. She could visit all the different realms, like the heaven realms and the hell realms, all the thought form realms, astral realms. And you did that too, similar thing, didn't you?
I stayed my first 3 years out of the NDE. I lived out in the universe most of the time. And I remember when my soul came and got me and said, you need to come back here. And I said, I'm not going back. I'm not. Now, somebody said, how is that possible? Yes, I was living in this world, but I was not in this world. I was out in the universe and dancing at the different planets. And I was going, oh my gosh, look at that. I remember I was a star. I saw that I was a star, and I did fall here. And it said, you were a star and you came here from a star. And I thought, gosh, that's great. Now, how am I going to tell people that? And then I just started talking about everything that I had learned. And I got on a stage, and I stood in my this house after I had my divorce after 5 years. I came back to my house here, and one day I was just standing up, and I said, it's time. And I just stood up, raised my hand up, and I said, I'm ready to speak for you. And the next week I had my first speaking engagement for $1,000.
Wow. Where was that?
That was when I was here. I've been here almost 25 years here.
Where's here? Where's here? You're talking about here.
In Versailles, Kentucky. And I'm in Kentucky.
Let me ask you, who employed you to speak for? I don't know. I've been doing this for 30 years, and no one's ever paid me for a speaking gig, because to speak about this stuff, do you know what I mean? Like, you speak about more normal stuff, they'll pay you. But
it was my divorce attorney's wife who just got a new job with the government, state government, and she needed a motivational speaker, and she's been working with me. She called me up and she said, are you ready to do motivational speaking? And I said, absolutely. And that week I made that point. I said, I'm ready to speak for you. Boom, I had it.
So, but you weren't speaking about your near-death experience. You were speaking more about uplifting people, like motivation.
Tell them about how I did that one was one day. I had 4 weeks to really, practice this, and I was driving in the car because being a teacher, you're a motivational speaker anyway. 24 hours a day with anybody like that.
Yeah.
So I was looking at, and this song came in, "Ain't No Mountain High Enough," and that came in with what was it? She was a black lady that sang it, but it's a really neat song. And so they said, my higher self literally said, that is the song you're going to walk into. And I thought, okay, I don't even know. So that's how I never did anything. I never wrote a script. I did not do anything. I would go up and spirit would speak through me and tell everybody what they needed to know.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It is, because I mean, that first one, I had a lapel mic, and I went into the bathroom. I went into the bathroom and I was talking to the window. I didn't know it was still on. So they heard me speaking about peeing and everything else. That was my first big event. And we laughed so hard. So when I came in, Spirit said, you're not going to go to the front. You'll come from the back. And I thought, and I had these people said, you got to go up there on the stage. I said, no. I'm supposed to come from the back and go forward. And then all of a sudden, this beautiful voice said, I want you to let everybody in the back can come forward, just like everybody in the front. And that's how it started out. That's how it was.
Ain't no mountain high. I just Googled it. Diana Ross.
Diana Ross.
No mountain high.
And I danced all the way through it and went down to people, sat in there and was just doing it. Man, I was rocking, you know. And I talked about the light of God, how that light is, electromagnetic field, and we have an empowerment. Now, this is in the state of, the state of Kentucky, in what it was called the Aging Committee. That's what I was there for, because I was older.
Nice.
It was. And I had a fan base then. I had all these people that were in the state with the state. I went to their conferences. I mean, I became very successful with the state of Kentucky.
Yeah. I was talking about that lady that's in my book, Yvonne Ballard, who calls herself Naya Indigo. He says here, she misses Naya. She found my channel through that interview with her. Yeah, she was just this little voice on YouTube trying to get out, just like you, Ginny. She'd had this amazing experience and she didn't know how to communicate it. And she was really bad at communicating, actually, at the time. She got better. Mm-hmm. And she just would do little videos, and she was talking about the nature of time as she understood it from the other side, which is hard to wrap our linear minds around. And I found this little 10-minute interview of her trying to explain it, and I just knew that she knew, like, this woman knows stuff, like you. Like, she had been, she had the memory of just exploring the universe and knowing who we are beyond our physical selves. And
I don't care, and I want to thank you, because it's so nice to be able to talk to somebody that's been around. A lot of these podcasters, they just wanted to hear the near-death experience, but they didn't understand the richness of what I was teaching and what I was saying. Because if you've never had that experience, it's like, I understand,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't understand. I mean, it's the biggest thing in my entire life, and I've done some amazing things at 74, but this was the biggest event at the age of 46 to all of a sudden go bam, and you get the wall and you say, I think I know everything.
Yeah.
And it's not what it is here. Right. And that really upset a lot of people, because I walked out of my business. I was told you need to quit your job, and I did that day.
What were you doing at the time? I was a teacher. Oh, you're a teacher, yeah. Mm.
And what it was, I did not end up, going completely through. I went up to my principal, and she looked at me. She was very intuitive as well. And she said, are you getting ready to quit right now? What I'm going to do is, I'm not going to quit. But what you're going to have to do is, you're going to have to give me 3 weeks off, or 2 weeks, or when I say I need something, but I will not be coming back after next year. I will finish this out. And I did. But I mean, I did not do anything that they asked me to do. I said, I don't want to die like this. I said, so they were very kind. They were just glad that I was going to finish out the year. So yeah, and then when I walked out, they gave me a big reception. They were beautiful. The kids, some of the students that were still in college, they flew back in, or they rode back in to say goodbye to me. And I was touched by this. I mean, it was amazing.
Well, once a teacher, always a teacher. I mean, you're still teaching. You're just not teaching math. You're teaching consciousness. I don't know what you call it. You're teaching consciousness. Consciousness. I think we need more consciousness teachers. I think all the schools should employ people that teach consciousness.
Well, I wanted to teach teachers how to utilize the energy that we can bring in, because I was doing it. I remember I would be sitting in my teacher's lounge. I said, did you see how the kids, when they came up and they all hit the light bulb, and I knew everybody got it, and they all my friends would say, only you, Jenny, only you can see these things. We can't. Oh, we had a ghost in our school, and we knew, and they said, Jenny, go over there and tell that ghost not to come forward. And I said, I would just, that was before I'd had my near-death experience.
Yeah, you could see that.
Yeah, because I've always seen that.
Indigo says here, yes, thank you, Virginia, and other guests for speaking your truth and helping us navigate this reality. So grateful for channels like yours, Karen. Thanks, darling.
I agree.
Shirley agrees 100%. Look, I'm just thrilled at the amount of, the amount of, like, the Jeff Reynolds having a million people tuning into your story, and the other shows that are just going, their episodes like this are going viral. Even though my episode might not go viral, it's not about me. It's about the information getting out there in any way it can. Like, Spirit shows me that we're knocking ourselves out to get this information through channels, now through AI, through ET contact. There's just so many. But before we came on live, Ginny said to me, I had to rush back because I was at my nephew's place. I had to do something over at my nephew's place. I said, what were you doing over your nephew's place? She said, do you want to tell them what you were doing?
Well, they have 2 children. They're 2 and 4, and they can see ghosts. And so can my nephew. And even his mother-in-law, she can see, because they've been hearing voices. They've been saying, there was a band that was whistling, and they knew that wasn't going on. And they said, and I kept saying, well, are you sure the children? Now, when children come in, this is what I've noticed with ghosts. Sometimes they just love being around with children. Yeah. So that's why. But the 4-year-old, what she saw, Emmy saw a little girl, and she was in the 1800s. See, I always look at their shoes. I ask them, what did they wear? And now, what kind of shoes were they wearing? That's where I'm going to tell you the dates, because I can look at the shoes where that time is. And so what she did is she said it was she said she had a white dress, but my nephew saw her also. And he called me. He said, look, I've seen her. My kids are seeing her, and my mother-in-law's seeing her. So we got to get something here. So I went over today and saged everything. But when he went into the bathroom, because I was teaching him, when he went into the one bathroom, the water's turned on by itself. And he called me, Aunt Jenny. And I went in there and I said, what's going on? He said, it turned on by itself. I said, well, this is where our location is. I said, let's start praying. And I said, do you understand that you are dead? And we did not hear anything. And then we heard, and it wasn't a pop. It's just like you have an understanding that I think that it's got the idea, because it's in-dimensional. It doesn't realize it's dead. And so most of the time, because I see people sitting on the side of the road, and I know that they've had an accident because they look very frail. They don't know what they're doing. They look very, confused. And I just go by in my consciousness, you're dead. And then they disappear.
So basically, once they know, so you're saying that a lot of ghosts, and this has been confirmed by other people who've been on my show too, that they think they're still in their physical body. Like you said, when you were out of body and you were speaking to the Council of 12, you expected to still have some sort of body, but you actually were not a body, you were light. Right. So these souls, I won't call them poor souls, they've died and they don't understand they've died. So as soon as you explain to them, you're dead, that gives them permission to sort of like, I'm okay. And that sort of changes a paradigm in their brain or something, in their mind or their consciousness, because they're not in a brain.
Yeah, because and a lot of ghost hunters don't like me to show up because I want them to go. I've gone to the battlefields of the worst battlefields, and I see them raising up from the earth and they're bloody and everything. I said, do you realize that you're not in this time zone anymore? Right. And And I mean, these are soldiers, and they'll look at me and they go, "Whoop," they're gone.
They're gone. Right. Yeah.
A lot of
Interesting.
those hunters don't like that because they want to play with them. I don't want them to play with them. I want them to go home so they can get reviewed, whatever they need to go through, so they can, if they got to come back, they can come back.
This is a longer conversation. We've only got about 10 minutes left, but you talked about the residual, like there are ghosts, so there are parts of, like a soul, part of the soul that has left the body that doesn't understand it's dead, so it needs to cross over. But there are also people that often see what is called ghosts, like you said you saw, I think it was your father. They're like memory, it's like thought form, it's memory and form that a psychic or a sensitive can tap into, but they're actually not sort of people that are stuck in the denser astral planes. They're just memory. It's like memory that you can see, right?
Yes.
What did you call it? Residual?
Residual. It's a
residual. Yeah.
Because my cats are still here, but they're residuals. Because when I have psychics, they'll say, did you have a black cat? I said, yes, but that's a residual. And then the cat I have now, Baby, I trained him to be energetic. Now I had another one named Miss Tina, and Miss Tina was good. She was a healer. They would ask for her, is Miss Tina in? And you would hear her pop up off the bed, and she would go in and do all of this, and then she would tell me their crown is out, this is out, and then she just pop out and go back.
Yeah, cool.
Her brother, and it was Ike and Tina. Her brother is the one who taught me how to speak.
Speak to the animals, speak to the cat.
And I speak to horses. I treated horses, and they would tell me, I was with equestrians all the time, because the horse would tell me, I would tell the owner, and the horses would know that she's coming in. I would hear them say, she's coming in, because they had to get a chance to talk.
Yeah.
I
had this guy on the show a couple of weeks ago. He was a nuts and bolts UFO guy. He's the director of MUFON Australia and New Zealand, but he's very scientific. Like you, he was a teacher. He taught science and history, technology and stuff in university. He's no longer teaching, but he said something funny to me. He said, well, you can't talk to the animals. And I said, have you not been watching my show? People come on, they talk to animals all the time. And he kind of looked at me.
Yeah. Well, the trees talk, honey.
Yeah.
I was in a very bad winter storm in here. And that tree and I, that my mother planted 60-something years ago, that tree and I held up the wires so nobody would get electrical, we would get electricity. That tree talks. The grass talks. Everything. I've got plants in here that talk, and I bring people in to learn how that works, because they're better communications than humans are, because we get too many words and we can say things that doesn't make doesn't make sense. Yeah. But when you're talking telepathically, you never if they're lying, and there's no such thing as lying in that.
I think it was Bashar, Darryl Anchor, who channels an ET called Bashar. I think he coined the phrase. He calls it telepathy. And when I first heard that, because I speak telepathically to spirit and dead people and all sorts of it is an empathy. It's like telepathy. It's not like you're just hearing words in your head. You're feeling, like you said, when you were with the council, you feel everything. It's like your whole body receives the information. Like your cells know. Yeah, it's like it's hard to even describe it.
There's no language. That's not a language. That is a feeling of that rings every cell in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's especially when you go into particles, because I have clients that have been here and I've disappeared in front of them.
Wow.
I had a man who flew all the way in from Chicago. He said, "I've heard you can, you can disappear." He said, "Do it." And I did. And he went, "Holy shit, it works."
Oh, I want to see that, Ginny. I had a guy years ago when I was hosting events like this on a Monday night who said he was an ET. He said he could do that too. And he came to my house and I had a little group there. He said that he could disappear. He could merge into the wall. And he didn't actually do it. Well, I didn't see it. He asked me to turn the dimmer down so low that you could hardly see him. And I'm thinking, oh, come on. But he said he could do it. I'm sure he could do it, but I didn't see it. He said, yeah, emerge into the wall. What does Carol Ann say here? Ethereal encounters unveiled. Exactly, Karen. Even if one person sees it and is transformed, it's all well worth it. I know, Carol Ann, this is talking about podcast shows that only get out of you. We're running out of time. We've got 6 minutes left. I wanted to talk about, I heard you talking about walking through plasma, which is kind of what we're talking about, walking through walls. What's that mean, walking through plasma?
It feels like water. You know how when you're going through a pool and the water's about up here, and how you feel the force, but you don't see the water, you know the water's there. That's exactly what plasma feels like. It's water. I mean, it's not water. It's like loose jello. That's what it feels like.
So this is when you leave your body, like your consciousness leaves you, and then you walk through plasma. You're a quantum physics teacher. What is plasma to you? Plasma
is that it is the substance that we all have right now. It's all here. Everything is on a frequency anyway. So just because these chairs and what we're sitting on, that's in a frequency to show solidity, to be solid. But when you go into a different state of mind, like I can go into liquid, and it goes into a liquid form. Everything then is waving. Everything is soft and very movement. It's like water. And I mean, I do that when I have people here. They'll go into, and I'll say, do you see the energy of the room? And it also, what occurs to me is it gets misty. It gets just real misty. And that's why I really am not disappearing. They just can't see me through the vent.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Oh, you are fascinating. You are a joy. It's been gorgeous to have you on the show.
I appreciate you because you know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about.
Girl, if we can just start talking to everybody, know whatever we're doing, they can do it. And that's what I try to teach them. Anything I can do, you can do.
Well, I think that on another podcast, I think that's what Jesus said to you, everything up. And he often says that to me too. I grew up pretty agnostic, didn't believe in any sort of Christianity or any religion really. And yet I had Jesus talking to me all the time, which was kind of weird because I didn't really believe in him because he was connected to a church I didn't believe in. But he always said that everything I can do, you can do too. I think he said that.
It's right there in the Bible.
Yeah.
It's right there. And that's what I'm telling you. There's a lot of people. That's what I saw. All these people that sent me emails and they wanted to talk to me. It was over that.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I think, he was telling us that. I often think about his message that he brought to the earth, which I don't think humanity really understood until now. He was very much talking about this shift that we're going through now. A lot of the things he said were sort of predictive about this time on earth right now, because it's only now that telepathic psychic abilities are starting to come more into the mainstream, and they've stopped being called woo-woo or crazy or demonic. There's still a lot of that going on, but it's only now that and he was talking about that. We got 3 minutes to go. What do you want to say before you go? Last message.
Well, what I just want to say is that whatever I can do, you can do. And the more you can get out of your own mind and really fall into your heart and feel what the truth is here. Don't believe anybody. Well, there is a thing, it's Isaiah 2:22. Place no faith with the man who breathes through his nostrils.
Yeah.
Without nostrils, honey, don't listen to what they're saying.
Yeah.
It's of the spirit.
Anything Ginny can do, anything anyone on the podcast can do, we can do. Absolutely. I don't think, this is one of my messages too. Being psychic is not being special or gifted or demonic. No. It's being human. It's just being human. You can develop it. Ginny actually asked me before we went on, I said, have you got any questions for me? And she starts interviewing me. How did you get into this? And were you psychic as a kid? And I said, not that I was aware of, but I wanted to develop it. And so I did. And I think that anyone can develop their psychic abilities. And, that's what the whole upgraded DNA that a lot of healers talk about is about bringing all those abilities back online and the ability to leave your body at will and to understand who we are as energetic beings. It's where we're going. It's where we're going.
That's it.
It's been such a pleasure and a joy. Thank you so much for being on the show, Ginny.
Oh, I enjoyed you tremendously. Thank you.
And thanks for everybody that's been on the chat, all the gorgeous girls. Wonderful. What did Indigo say here? Lots of synchronicities confirming puzzle pieces here. Thanks, darling. And Shirley and Heidi, thanks for being here. Virginia, thank you for all the luscious ladies that were joining our chat. Sean, Kelly's coming up on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network with what's Sean's Into the Night is Sean's show coming up. And thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Who have I got on the show next week? Can I bring up the calendar? I haven't got it in front of me. But remember on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Kristen's coming on. We're doing a Q&A, so get your questions ready. Des de Zuckerman's coming up next week, who's somebody who can see auras and she understands the human energy field. She's a healer and a teacher. She's amazing, coming up next week. But Thursday morning in Australia, Wednesday is our new show called Elevate Consciousness with Carol Ann and Kristen. Kristen's coming on. We're going to answer your questions. So I look forward to seeing you all again too. Big love to you, Ginny. Bye for now. Thanks, everybody.